Thanks everybody for joining us back here. We have VO from the infamous Greg Newman trial. So how are you feeling, VO?
I'm pretty excited that everything went down how it did. The only thing I am a little confused about is why he still has his law license. That is shocking to me, about how he can still have it with everything that has went down.
What do you think about that?
I think we were all outraged about that. So I'm glad you brought it up. And John is the one who can talk about that.
What can I say about it? I'm not part of the Bar Association. I'd kick that man out of my tribe every day of the week.
Well, why don't you talk about the process of that specific thing? Educate us, as you usually do.
What, about the bar? The Bar Society?
Well, about what happened in the most recent hearing. Sorry about that. That delay is causing me my brain. I hear 6 voices.
Yeah, you're probably hearing it quietly. Well, no, I can't do that. I was going to say, you want me to mute my side of the phone, but you kind of need that.
So, well, here's what happened for all of the people who don't know. And if you watch till the end of the video, I'm going to make a file, a folder just about Greg Newman, and it will be up at the end of this interview. Anyways, Greg Newman got found guilty by the Bar Association in 2018 for letting a client off that was a drug dealer that was his client before he became district attorney. He got sanctioned for that, and then in 2020, they suspended him with a stay on the suspension. So they suspended his suspension, and that's kind of ridiculous. And they let him keep his bar license, let him go back to work as a district attorney. All of the people were really upset about this. They started filing affidavits with the court, in which he had another hearing come up, and that hearing they removed him from office, and they just came out with that news 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. So on Tuesday, the 27th of April.
Which the same day there was an earthquake in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Was there?
So I would like to quote from the North Carolina State Bar. Unanimous decision from the panel. We did not believe this was a case of disbarment. It is our decision, Mr. Newman, be suspended for a 3-year period. However, we are staying the suspension for the entire time. This was the ruling of the North Carolina State Bar and the Administrative Court. Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when that ruling came about, VO?
When I was there, when they said that, I just didn't know how to react. Mm-hmm. I was angry, frustrated, not understanding why they didn't see it as a disembarment, whenever what they found was everything that we had put it for. So I just don't understand why they didn't do it at that moment. It just overwhelmed me. And I was like, I wonder what we can do next.
And I kind of apologize for not bringing this up before, but I've always called you VO because that's what your name was on the record of the records that I could get. Do you wish to tell everybody your name, or?
Yes, my name is Valerie Owenby.
Valerie Owenby. So thank you. Now I'm just going to start saying Valerie.
A very brave woman indeed.
Thank you.
And you were in person, of course, at the state bar hearing, and myself and others were able to hear it online. So
Yes.
we were just as outraged as you have been. Of course, much more being victimized by the system itself now.
Exactly.
So what was the next step?
Well, I joined the group on Facebook called Mountain Justice. My mom was already a part of that group, and she sent me an invite telling me this is some people that have been through what you have, or in different manners, I suspect, but could have been through. So I joined that, and then the affidavit petition came out, and we all put down for that.
Right.
And got the ball moving, as you can see.
Wait just a moment. The affidavit decision came out?
Well, no, it was the petition for it. Like, where you sign that. Well, I can't think of the word.
So who came up with the whole idea of filling out these affidavits and sending them into the court?
As far as I know, it was Joanne McDowell, I think, as far as I can remember on that part.
Yeah. And how long had you been, you're a part of Mountain Justice?
I had been a part of Mountain Justice for about 2 to 3 months beforehand.
Okay.
For about 2 to 3 months before...
The state bar meeting?
No, before the petition for the affidavit.
Okay, so let me just tell you the way that I learned about you, Valerie, was I went to one of the meetings, Mountain Justice meetings, and when I first heard your story that was spoken about, I immediately let Jonathan know what happened, and I did some research, and he immediately got to it and did the video. And I suppose one of the things I'd like to know, the first video that you did was in November?
Yeah, it was November 15th, the first video that I published.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when you watched that?
I do. I was super excited when I watched it. I was over here like, oh my goodness, this is so awesome.
Yes.
Like, this conspiracy for real.
Yes. Yeah. Can you tell us what impacted you the most about that particular video, that an expose was done on what happened to you and the whole Greg Newman, Henderson, Polk, and Transylvania County court system?
What affected me most was that what I had, starting with the state bar going on, that it was being shared and that everyone was finally knowing the truth about Greg Newman.
Yes.
And how now, hopefully, things would be perceived in a different view on that part.
Exactly. It certainly brought a lot more awareness to the community. And just for you to know, it has really gone viral out of this state. And you have many, many, many supporters concerning your case, from Canada to California to New Zealand, Australia. So there are a lot of people who have been interested and have actually wanted to know how we've even gotten this far. So if you could backtrack a little bit and let us know concerning the state bar, the extreme disappointment you had that they allowed Greg Newman out on the street again to continue to do what he had been doing. And right after that, you were saying that affidavits were written, and where were those affidavits sent?
To the Hendersonville County Courthouse. Sorry.
To the Henderson County Clerk of Court in North Carolina.
Yes.
Who happens to be Tyler Ray. Do you know if there was any response that came back from the Clerk of Court?
I personally haven't read that for. I was just notified by the Mountain Justice because I work constantly, so I'm over here like logging on when I can and such forths. But I knew that there was a discussion on having a conflict of interest between no, never mind. I'm sorry.
Maybe the judicial officers in Henderson County and having Greg Newman go before a trial there.
Yeah, so I know that they grabbed a superior judge from another county that wasn't in the District 86, correct?
Well, I think the district, because it was 29B, and I believe that they renamed it District 42.
And I think that, Valerie, you were referring to where the Superior Court Judge District came from, that particular judge. Mm-hmm. So actually, I was very pleased that they had gotten someone who was out of this community.
Yes.
I think it was necessary. I don't think the outcome would have been the same. And I don't think, I was very pleased, so were many others, to know that the judge was from out of this district.
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm, which helped your case and others also.
Most definitely.
Your testimony was very riveting. It was very powerful, very emotional. And for myself personally, it was difficult and painful to not only hear that, but I think that the satisfaction of giving you the opportunity to be able to address Greg Newman was most powerful.
Most definitely. It helped me a lot in that aspect.
So if you could elaborate a little bit more on that for other men or women who've been victimized, can you tell me how it helped you?
When you're on, oh my goodness, not platform, what is it called? On the stand, facing who has either victimized you or mostly victimized you in an aspect. When you're able to sit up there and look at them and tell them what they did to you, how it has affected you, how it has hurt you, how you might not be able to trust due to that. It brings a sense of relief to you as I got it out. I'm able to breathe. I can take a step forward.
So you feel like it really helped you with the processing of the situation?
It did, most definitely.
So, and did you testify before the state bar when they were holding their administrative hearing about Greg Newman?
I did a little. It was more of a questionnaire, not on the case, as in my case that had happened is more it was more for the victim's right hearing, where he didn't give us the right to hear. So it was in a different aspect of what needed to be said and what was said at the time. You
testified a little before the
state bar
administrative hearing with the state bar, and I know that I've heard this from people who watched the administrative hearing with the state bar and people who watched the hearing up in Hendersonville. And did you feel like they were blaming you, like when you were cross-examined on the stand by Greg Newman's attorney? Do you feel like they were blaming you for making the accusations against him, like they were re-traumatizing you in a sense with how they were questioning you?
When I was on the stand, it was only the 3 people who examined me. There was no cross-examination from Greg Newman's side.
And that was when you were on the stand up in Hendersonville?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so there was no cross-examination. They never attacked you while you were on the stand?
Not in Hendersonville. In the one at the state bar, they cross-examined me, and it was quite brutal. They were just saying that mostly I was lying. Like, you had to be contacted. This is how it was. I had this little piece of paper, a little, like, what's it called?
Sticky note?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I have a horrible memory when it comes to that part. I'm like, sticky notes. I don't know words.
Well, I mean, hey, look, nobody knows where that sticky note came from. It's like, I have the sticky note in the file. Well, who wrote it? I don't know. What about people in your office? They don't know either. This just magical sticky note appeared out of nowhere that nobody knows anything about, but it's proof we called Valerie.
Yeah, which was unbelievable that he would even say something like that. Because it's like, if there's no actual proof in something, why would you go ahead and say that?
Hey, I don't even see how that sticky note made it into evidence, considering nobody could verify its creation or existence.
Exactly.
You know, that's a common law aspect right there. If a man or a woman cannot verify how something was created or came into existence, it can't count as evidence. Because things don't just create themselves out of thin air. It doesn't happen.
And yet the state bar accepted that as evidence from Greg Newman that he said that he notified you.
Well, they can, because it's administrative. No, there are no rules of evidence in administrative proceedings. Mm-hmm. They just do whatever they want.
Versus a court of law. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so tell me what your experience was with the state bar.
So when I went up to Raleigh, I drove all the way from Florida. Mm-hmm. So I first went to Hendersonville to see to pick up my dad and my mom, so that, because we all were testifying. So then we headed up to Raleigh. When we got there, we met the disciplinary committee. Very nice. Awesome. I can't remember the guy's name. The one who was cross-examining Newman at the state bar. And he also testified at the Hendersonville one as well. But he was awesome. He tried his best to do everything that he could during that. So it gave me hope in an aspect for his side. But it's in Raleigh. Hendersonville is a different county. It was more like the Good Old Boy Club with Greg Newman at the center in Hendersonville. I'm sorry, I'm not good at interviews.
It's okay.
It's okay. You're doing just fine.
You're doing great. Mm-hmm. And I know that this probably brings up a lot of memories for you. So to just take it as slow as you need to. Mm-hmm.
Understood.
So I think this goes back to what I had said earlier, which is very sad for me to have to say this, and that is having someone, a judge that came from out of our community, as well as the attorneys who were there. And I can't remember the attorney's name. I think he did a great job when he gave the audiovisual and succinctly pointed out a lot of the areas that Greg Newman had been found guilty by the state bar. I think he did an excellent job of that. And I was very impressed to see the evidence that he brought out And actually, that started to give me hope finally for my own community to be able to see this happening. And again, the sad part is that it was someone from out of our community who was able to really bring out the truth and say what really happened and not cover it up, but to expose it.
Exactly.
Exactly. I think it was very encouraging for a lot of us and very sad that our own community cannot police itself, cannot be accountable. And that leads me to another probably question, and that is, if you could talk about, John, higher up, who was Greg Newman really accountable to? And let's talk about whether or not that involves Cooper and Josh Stein.
Well, I mean, being elected by the people, he's ultimately accountable to the people. But obviously, Josh Stein, as he's stated in multiple interviews, is there to protect the people of North Carolina.
His website says so.
Yeah, and his website also says that he prosecutes public officials, even though we never saw it until his hand was forced. But I mean, I know that there were a lot of people writing him letters, emails, telling him that he should prosecute, and he still didn't prosecute. You know, so, and this is the thing, like kind of like with Derek Chauvin's case, the district attorney was prosecuting him, but of course, who was representing him on the criminal side? It's the general attorney's office, the attorney general's office for the state.
So let's talk about the next step. Valerie, you mentioned your incredible disappointment, as well as many of us, that Greg Newman has been removed finally from his office of being the district attorney of Henderson, Polk, and Transylvania County in North Carolina, but they did not remove his license.
True. So I think our next step should be, as unfortunately I'm not able to file another complaint with the state bar.
And why is that?
Well, I thought I couldn't. I guess I can. Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would file a complaint. And in fact, anybody who's watching this interview should file a complaint with the North Carolina State Bar and ask them why on God's green earth. So really, everybody who's watching this should file a complaint to the North Carolina Bar Association and ask them why on God's green earth could they have this case in their hands back in November, him get found guilty of all of these things, and they couldn't do the right thing and go ahead and take his bar license and remove him from office. But why, still on God's green earth, can he keep his bar license after the state has convicted him of these things in an actual court of law? Like, is that the type of impression and the type of reputation that the Bar Association of North Carolina wishes to leave people with when they're going through these atrocities? Is this idea that an attorney can lie to a judge, can lie to his clients, can lie to the public, get away with it, get found guilty of it, get removed of office because of it, but he still keeps his bar license?
Yeah, we'd all like an answer to that one. So I'm with you, John. Everyone who's listening to this, write to the state bar and ask them why he still has his license.
Write to the North Carolina State Bar about that. Write to the Missouri State Bar and ask them why on God's green earth can a judge stay in a position of power when he talks about getting other attorneys off when complaints are made against them to the state bar for their fraudulent activities.
Exactly. And I'd like to say to everyone who's been involved in writing letters, sending emails, phone calls, we just really want to thank you on behalf of Valerie, on behalf of everyone who lives in the 3 counties, as well as the state to state, because this has really been an incredible lesson to a lot of different people in a lot of different states that they've been contacting to find out, how did you do that and how can we do that? So we're encouraged to know that there are many people who've been watching from out of the state, including out of this country. And I'd like to be able to help change the reputation of North Carolina, because it's pretty low right now. Even though we did get a victory with the removal of Greg Newman from his position, still we are going to continue to pursue the removal of his license so that he cannot practice not only in North Carolina but any other state in being an attorney.
Yeah, and not only that, but hey, Bar Association, we're trying to help your reputation too with the people.
That's right.
You know, all you got to do is the right thing. It's not that hard.
That's exactly right.
It shouldn't be this hard for somebody like Valerie to get a little bit of some type of semblance of justice. And of course, Valerie still hasn't gotten justice yet because James Sapp is still walking
That's
free.
Right.
He is still the neighbor at my dad's house. I'm not able to go up there and see him or surprise him when I come up to North Carolina.
So you're not able to visit with your dad in North Carolina because James Sapp still lives next door.
He does. He is.
And, yeah. So what's the next step when it comes to James Sapp?
So hopefully I can I'm looking into ways to see if I'm able to prosecute him again due to the fact of Greg Newman's injustice on the case. And then we will be pursuing that. And I'm excited for that. I hope justice served this time for that.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you a little story you might know something about. You know Jeffrey Epstein?
I do.
Okay, so in his case, the whole way that he got arrested in 2019 was because back in 2007, the victims didn't get to testify before he had his plea bargain. Okay, and because of that, it took him about a decade, but eventually the federal court said, nah, the victims didn't get to testify. That violates their due process of law. Then we have to overturn the plea bargain.
I'm excited to hear that.
So, you know, that's basically what people need to do with James Sapp up in North Carolina. They need to say, hey, the victim was never heard, and what y'all are doing is wrong. There is no double jeopardy because he got charged with assault on a female, which I'm sure happened more times than the other allegations or the other accusations that were against him. And he never got charged for those accusations. So you can't say it's double jeopardy.
Right.
I don't know what to say next. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Valerie, what is it that you'd like to tell the public and the men and women that have been very supportive of you? In fact, many of them you don't even know, and who've been very involved in your case, who've actually been the ones writing the letters and making phone calls, and the various groups that have been supportive of you. What would you like to say to them today?
I would like to say thank you for your thoughts and prayers, and thank you so much for the support. We needed it. I am so glad that North Carolina, Hendersonville area is getting a little more better. I'm excited that finally justice is starting to be served. And thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad that we could be a part of this journey and take it together with you. I'm very honored that you came on to the interview and you're sharing your story. I'm very honored that I got the chance to make you feel redeemed in some kind of way after the state bar's administrative proceedings against Greg Newman.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we feel very honored that we've been able to expose to a greater extent your story as well as others' stories, but your story in particular, as well as trying to help you in the journey to be able to get that justice that you're looking for. Because what happens to one happens to all, and if it hasn't happened to someone else yet, it will. It will if they don't help participate in making those accountable to be able to bring the justice, to be able to bring a court of law into their area, to be able to bring forth the judicial system to do the right thing and not have administrative courts, but courts of law.
Most definitely on that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So is there anything you'd like to tell the public right now in your next move forward?
So I'm excited to say that now that I have this information, I'm glad. I'm definitely going to be going after James Sapp and writing more and more things to the state bar.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I'll be writing more
And that,
to the state bar, as in, I will find my justice.
Who's starting the party off?
you do it.
I'm starting the party off?
Yeah.
All right. Valerie, thanks for coming back after this short commercial break we had of about 5 hours so we could go get something to eat and you could recharge your iPad. We really appreciate this.
Do.
Sorry for all the inconveniences. Anyways, while we were out getting something to eat, I actually had a really, really good idea. I don't know when you're going to be in North Carolina the next time, but here's my idea. When you come to North Carolina next time, get in touch with us. We will get a group together of at least 15 to 25 people, go down to the courthouse with you, and witness you swear out a warrant against James Sapp. And if you can't swear out a warrant against James Sapp, then no police officer anywhere in this country has any right swearing out a warrant against anybody if you can't swear out a warrant against a man who violated you the way that James Sapp did.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a great idea to
we
me.
have
I
that
will
group
definitely
already
do that
waiting
with y'all.
for you.
And not only that, but when we do this, it's my personal opinion that you should swear out a warrant against Greg Newman for being an accessory after the fact, giving aid and comfort to James Sapp by helping him avoid prosecution by the state.
And
That
you won't be
sounds like a
alone.
great
We'll be
idea
with
to
you,
me.
and so will many others.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay. So didn't you have a couple of things you wish to
I
talk
do.
about?
I was really impressed not only with your testimony but with your dad's, and I was going over some of the recordings, and I believe you were with your dad until the age of, was it 14? And then you were with your mom.
14, correct.
Can you tell me what part your parents played in this whole ordeal of what happened with you? We'd like to know kind of the part they played and how supportive they were through this whole ordeal with you.
So I initially told my mom in a Waffle House parking lot, because what better place to tell your mom about this? So she called the police right away. After doing so, my dad was informed. My neighbors actually called my dad because James Sapp had got a phone call at his house, and his wife, Sherry Sapp, had called my dad, and mostly blunted out to him, this is what your daughter did. What are you going to do about it? My dad says, well, we'll see. And so my dad took action right away. We went to the health physician, had everything checked over, and then I went directly into therapy after that to work out the situations that what had been the trauma for me and such forth in that. During this entire process, when we first went to the initial first court date, I went in, my dad was there. My mom was going through chemotherapy at the time for breast cancer. So she wasn't able to go a lot to those. But she did make it to the first one, luckily. And at that one, James Sapp was there along with his wife. And during that first one, he wouldn't stop keeping his eyes off me and his wife as well. So I didn't feel comfortable going in to the other ones after that until it would be my time to speak for that. My dad went to everyone and was informed of everyone because he would talk to our, it was called the Healing Place at the time. And we had an advisor from there that would let us know everything about the court dates and such forth. So we went through that, and after, because my dad called about a week before the initial court date, before like the last one that was supposed to be happening, it was supposed to be going to Superior Court or
District Court. That's
no,
Superior
the
Court.
one above District Court. Okay, that was correct. So it was supposed to initially go into Superior Court at that court date. My dad called a week ahead, like a week beforehand, to make sure it was still going on, and was informed that the case had been settled. When my dad found that out, he went to me immediately and was like, what's going on? And I'm over here like, we're all dumbfounded by the fact that this was settled in a manner that we weren't able to be heard. We weren't contacted. It was just a whole bunch of nonsense that came out at once. So my dad talked to Greg Newman after that, and Greg Newman said it was shoddy police work. But before that, it was after the first court date, I had talked to Greg Newman, and we were looking over the photos of James Sapp's genitalia area. And he said that all the marks that I had said were right there, which he was showing me the photos at the time. My mom was out of the room due to it being a sensitive area for me. So we talked about the area of him and how I pointed out the areas that I had stated beforehand. So, and he said at that time that it was a really good case, that everything looks like how it was going to be at the time. And he asked me at that time if I wanted to be heard or if I was starting an impact statement for me to be heard. And I said, yes, I want to be heard. So we went through that, and my dad he's a really smart man. So he's over here looking up every single way to do things. He's collected evidence over 2 years about what happened and how it was fudged in a perspective. So after we did all that, my mom and dad have been such a great help to me in so many ways. So we went over this, and then he sent that to the state bar, and then that's how that all started.
Valerie, I'm sorry to hear that your mom went through cancer. How is she now?
She's good. Been cancer free for about
Mm-hmm.
4 years now,
Mhm.
4 to 5 years.
And your mom and dad have been very supportive. And one of the things that John and I were talking about is that when there's victims, especially children, a lot of times adults, parents, they don't believe what children have to say. They don't always take it seriously. And so in this case, your mom and dad were very attentive and right on top of it immediately once they heard what happened to you. Mm-hmm.
Well, and another
Correct.
thing that we were talking about was, I'm sure that you heard this sometime in school growing up, that you know, if you were abused or assaulted or touched, you know, if something happened to you, then you should tell an adult, and you know, justice is going to come. Were you ever told those things?
Unfortunately, I went to a Christian school that was never brought up. I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 10th grade. And during that entire time, it was going on. Well, not entire, but from 5 to 12, which was most of the time. I had said something to one of my classmates that was referred to as worldly to their aspects. And we started a purity class, which was talking about how you save yourself until marriage. You don't, you know, to that extent, like no holding hands, no kissing and such forths. So when I was going through that, it made me feel worse because of everything that had happened to me. It just, since I was in a Christian school, it made me feel like I was going to hell, like right there. So it was a awful aspect to feel that way during that time.
Excuse me. So in effect, you were re-traumatized over and over again, and it must have felt like the shame and the blame was put on you for what was happening to you, because you weren't, according to whatever was being taught at the time, you weren't saving yourself for your spouse when you had been molested and abused over and over again from the age of 5 to 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And it was,
Correct.
I believe, at the age of 14 when you had told your mom what happened to you.
Yes. It was about 3 months after I moved in with her. Sherry's daughter, which is James Sapp's wife, was having a wedding, and my sister and I were going to have to stay the night with Sherry and Sapp. And, well, this was before I told my mom. So I was afraid for myself and my sister because she's
Valerie.
2 years younger than me. I was over here in panic mode,
so in order
and
to
that's when I
protect
told
your
my mom
sister,
about it.
You finally revealed to your mom what happened to you all those years with the sexual abuse. Wow, that was very, very, very
Correct.
brave of you to do that. And obviously you were attempting to protect your sister, and your mom took immediate action, and so did your dad. And I understand right now, as was said earlier, James Sapp, he still lives next door to your dad. And I believe you said earlier that when you were in court in those early days of when the hearings first started, that James Sapp was there with his wife, and they were staring at you, which made you incredibly uncomfortable. And it was intimidating.
Yes, because Sapp, yeah, because James Sapp had threatened me when I was 5 if I had ever told that he would kill my brother, my
Wow.
dad, my grandparents. And it was installed in me that whenever I saw his face, and that when I first went there,
Right.
it was like a major flashback. And it just, I was traumatized, and I'm like, it was extremely
Mm-hmm.
concerning to me. And I'm even right now, I'm still worried about my dad living up there
Yeah,
next to him
especially with James Sapp
because,
sneaking around his property
Mhm.
and altering his wildlife cameras and,
yeah,
you know, doing things to the stuff that are his. And from what I understand, he made a report about it to the police department and that they haven't really done anything.
correct. And since my dad has to go through their yard area to get down the mountain, actually, this was about a week ago. Sherry came out of the house and was, my dad, luckily, my dad had his iPad on, and because they put up signs like just some awful signs telling them like Valerie and Jean are liars and stuff like that. And Sherry came out of the out of the house while he was driving down the
Oh.
driveway, yelling at him, swearing at him, and like shaming him and stuff like that. My dad has it
So
on his
this
iPad,
is still
luckily.
continuous
So
intimidation and fear tactics that James Sapp is perpetrating
it is.
and has against you and now against your dad, who's right next door to him. Is that correct? You're saying? Mm-hmm.
It is. And my dad doesn't have a cell phone, so anytime he doesn't answer his home phone, I get worried. I call my brother up and I ask him to always check on my dad at least
Yes.
once a week because I'm extremely
And so,
about him.
in your dad's testimony, he said that he went to the sheriff's department and he filed a complaint against James Sapp for coming on his property. And now, of course, there's more things that are going on, as you had just mentioned, and that your dad has a picture. Your dad showed up in court. He didn't show up. They told your dad that they hadn't given James Sapp the paperwork. This is from the sheriff's department. And then when your dad, the next month,
Mhm.
went to speak with them, they said they could not tell your dad what the procedure is. So your dad mentioned in court that there's not a lot of confidence he has in the sheriff's department either. His testimony also
Correct.
was he had no confidence in the district attorney's office. And this is what your father
Correct.
said, and I'll quote. Now going through the North Carolina court system, it has added insult to our injury as well as betrayal. It is a betrayal of our legal system when the district attorney does not follow its own laws of the state of North Carolina. It's a betrayal when the district attorney, Greg Newman, defense attorney, Christopher Stepp of Hendersonville, North Carolina, had, and I think he mentioned the clerk of court, but I couldn't really make that out, but when they lied to Judge Athena Brooks. There are laws to protect the victim, and my daughter was not protected. We gave them all the necessary information, and there was no follow-up with the victim's Bill of Rights. My faith says man should be punished by man's law. Do the right thing with integrity. And that the rule of law, we need to put it back into the legal system. He also said the attorney got a plea for his client. The victim remained the victim. Justice was for the district attorney and for the client, James Sapp. Where is justice for the victim? Where is justice for my daughter? Where is justice for my family? Because we have not received it yet. Look at the justice system we have here in Henderson County. It's a kangaroo court. I thought these were very powerful words coming from your dad that I heard him say on the third day of the hearing in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I think they were very powerful. And I think this is only the beginning of being able to get District Attorney Greg Newman out of office. But again, as we mentioned in the earlier segment, he apparently still has his license to continue to do what he has been doing, which has been without any remorse. So I'm sure you're very proud of your dad and your mom for standing up for you. It was wonderful to hear and painful to hear his testimony that day in court. I was able to be there day 1 and day 3. And I was very glad to hear your testimony and his.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to point to the Citizen Times article that I thought they did a good job on. It was much more extensive than any of the articles I had read previously. And I myself would like to thank, because I really do appreciate the judge who came and gave this ruling. And again, appreciative that he was from out of this community. This is, I'm going to show you this, because I'm proud of this fella here, as well as his staff and others who came along with him. I think that they gave a great job in succinctly pointing out a very important timeline, which had to do with voting at the time that Greg Newman was voted into office, that he had already had been disciplined by the state bar. It was pointed out here, if it hadn't been for Valerie Owenby going to the bar and then going through that, Valerie basically just saved all of us. Of the case where Newman was found to have lied to a judge about notifying an alleged rape victim's family of the plea deal that took place. Judge Aaron saw through the facade the defense portrayed. He made the best decision for our community, clearly saw the facts that were presented, will continue to fight for justice for our loved ones. And this comes from other families of kids who've been murdered and raped, where Greg Newman did not even investigate.
Well, I mean, not only that, but Joni's father, Henry Ramo, had property stolen from him. Two properties. Yes. And 6 people from the family wrote to Greg Newman telling him that they were willing to testify against the individual who stole the properties, and gave him a written expose from the thief talking about planning on stealing the properties, and he wouldn't prosecute. He said, go find an attorney. And the attorney said, well, this would be a civil matter, except for the fact that they sold the properties, which makes it criminal. And of course, the civil attorney cannot prosecute a criminal case.
So 2 properties were stolen. And 2 women walked into the Register of Deeds in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and signed the property over to one particular woman, Josephine Ramo, who has since sold one of the properties. And again, we did go to Greg Newman, who failed to investigate.
Well, no, we did the entire investigation for him.
Yes, we did.
He failed to prosecute.
Yes.
He didn't have to investigate anything. We had all the witnesses lined up. We had all the documents and evidence lined up.
We did.
We had all of the certified documents from the Registry of Deeds for him. Wouldn't do anything.
Yes. So, I myself am glad that Greg Newman is no longer there. So, you're right. And if you go on Just Conspiracy, there are some videos on that case that are still pending that we will start to work on with renewed hope now.
most definitely on that part.
What are you looking for?
Well, I want to be able to name correctly the judge.
Judge Orwell?
Yes. So this article points out Superior Court Judge Robert C. Ervin, E-R-V-I-N, issued the order on April 27th, 2021, after a 3-day hearing of April 12th, 13th, and 14th, finding that Newman's actions in office rose to the level of willful misconduct and conduct prejudicial to the administration of justice, which brings the office into disrepute.
Well, and the thing that's so sickening about this is, the state bar heard your complaint.
Mm-hmm.
But how many complaints did they get from people like you who they just, oh, this isn't worth hearing? Oh, we're not going to deal with this. Because my guess is that if they heard your complaint, I bet 100 other people sent something similar.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people on Mountain Justice that have sent complaints to the state bar that have not. Like, it was way before mine. And
yeah, because
been
the
ignored.
Bar Association's just there to smooth everything over. I mean, that's what Judge Burton set up in St. Louis, Missouri. And he said, I'm in touch with the Bar Association to figure out how we're going to handle this mess. Mm-hmm. We got to be proactive. Because it threatens to take down the whole system. Judges are in on it. Mm-hmm. Have you been watching what's going on in St. Louis, Missouri?
I have. I've actually been so focused on everything that you've posted on Just Conspiracy. And when you contacted me, when Joni, I was over here like, no way. I just love it. I never thought that, I would actually be on something like this. I'm over here this
I'm glad that you are a true blue co-conspirator.
Along with us.
I just don't believe in the YouTube numbers because you would think my channel hasn't really grown that much since the whole Greg Newman thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still getting about the same number of views.
No, we don't believe in those numbers, but we do believe
we believe the NSA is messing them up.
But we have gotten text and phone calls and letters, so we know that this is going far and wide, like I said earlier, not only just in the United States, but in other countries. So it's very encouraging, the impact the Just Conspiracy on the YouTube channel has been. Also very grateful for another channel called More Than Jibber Jabber.
More Than Jibber Jabber.
So we thank JJ and Christine and JD and Sean and others who have been very active. And excuse me if I don't remember everyone's name, Monarch and Tara. And we just got to...
JD, the Unseen.
And there's so many that are out there that have been very, very supportive and very active in asking about especially this particular case with you, Valerie.
And in fact, Valerie, I am hosting a seminar on the 23rd of May at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a Sunday. So if you're off, let me know. I'll send you an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
So I do want to also add that the 3 days of the hearing, the North Carolina State Bar and the Disciplinary Hearing Panel presented evidence and found this evidence to be true, that Greg Newman is not honest, he's not trustworthy, he did not act with integrity in connection with these events, that it has been a negative impact of Mr. Newman's actions on the client, the public's perception of the of the profession.
Isn't it so interesting how they're only worried about the perception? Mm-hmm. They don't care if we actually have justice or not, just if we think we do. And you know what else I love?
Changing.
I love that after he was found guilty of these things, how a judge wasn't even bothered by it, how the sheriff still got up and testified on his behalf of how great of a guy he is, how church leaders got up and talked about how wonderful this guy who lets child molesters go is, because they see him for a couple hours on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really worries me about this whole system that's going on. I feel as if a lot of people, if you're good old buddies with them, then if they help you out with something, oh, we'll throw a little coin in for you. That's how it goes. And that's just how
Well, I'm just
it is, and it's awful.
How long Greg Newman's going to stay alive. Because he's got to have dirt on all of these people. And he didn't leave office willingly.
Exactly.
Like, the only reason they let him go before is because he had dirt on everybody. So somebody might just Jeffrey Epstein him.
I'd like to also point out that they said Greg Newman engaged in misrepresentation and fabrication. He acted from a dishonest, selfish motive. He failed to timely make a good effort to rectify the consequences of his misconduct.
Well, and see, here's the thing that's ridiculous, is not only did Greg Newman fail to actively rectify his misconduct, but Athena Brooks failed, the Attorney General failed. Everybody in that state government has failed you in doing a timely rectifying of the situation that happened to you almost a decade ago. And that's just way too long to wait for some type of justice.
Well, I'd like to know, what about those that are also in the district attorney's office themselves? I'd like to know anybody who is in that office who has witnessed or seen any wrongdoing. Why not come forth? Why not say what's been going on? Why not expose and bring truth? This affects you also as well as each one of us. So I'd like to see where those truthful, righteous men and women in Henderson, Transylvania, Polk County, and everywhere to come forth and to do what is right and what is just, and to expose those works and to be able to bring justice to the victims.
Yeah, where are all the good Christians in Henderson County hollering about God's law and bringing God's law to Henderson County?
So I would like to say also that there is a small group that has started to form and may have already been forming but been in the background. And we encourage you to continue to come forth. Anyone who's been victimized and anyone who lives in our community, and do this in your own community, to come forth and to expose what's been going on and use our example, what each one of us has done in our own way, to bring forth the dismissal, the removal of a district attorney in our area.
Yeah, because only together can we accomplish these things. We can't accomplish these things if we let them beat us up, intimidate us, separate us by race, color, creed, class, religion, beliefs, ideology, mask, vaccines.
We are our brother's keeper, and we are here interdependently helping one another. Not dependent on one another, but interdependently helping and assisting each one. Because what happens to you happens to me. And what happens to me is, if it hasn't happened to you yet, then you're in line for it to happen. Because if good men do nothing, then the progression of evil will continue to persist. So I'm glad that there has been a small group of us has been very proactive in cleaning up our area, our neighborhood, our community, our county, our state, and your state also, your country also.
So Valerie, I've never been real public on my channel about why I got into what I'm doing, and would you like my interpretation on what happened between James Sapp, Chris Stepp, and Greg Newman? Okay, here's what I see in my mind's eye I see James Sapp walking into Chris Stepp's office and saying, how much does it cost to just get this all to go away? And I see Chris Stepp saying, I don't know, let me get back to you on that. And then, as soon as James Sapp left his office, now just remember, this is all hypothetical and there's no actual facts to my theory. But as soon as James Sapp left Chris Stepp's office, I bet Chris Stepp got on the phone, called Greg Newman and said, I got a sucker who's willing to pay. How much would it cost to get you to drop this down to assault on a female? And Greg Newman probably said $60,000. And then Greg Newman probably called what's her name?
Chris Stepp? Athena Brooks.
Athena Brooks. Greg Newman probably called Athena Brooks and said, hey, Athena Brooks, if we kind of shift this around and get it knocked down to district court because we say Superior Court's busy, how much would it cost for you to allow him to plead down to assault on a female instead of the charges that he's facing? And Athena Brooks probably said $30,000. And he said, deal. And then he probably called Chris Stepp back and he said, all right, meet us up at the courthouse on Thursday at 2 p.m. Because James Sapp just magically appeared. Nobody knows why he was there.
Let me tell you, it's the most ridiculous reason of what he said. Greg Newman had said at the state bar, oh, Chris Stepp came in and tried to, say, this isn't working. There's not a lot of evidence here. As you can see here, everything isn't working out good. It wouldn't be in your favor to do this. And so he was talking to Chris Stepp about it, and they decided on dropping it to assault on a female. And surprisingly, Sapp was down in the office area.
How convenient.
Of the courthouse that day. So, how convenient. Oh my goodness. Wow. So, Greg Newman's over here. I'll go find a judge. We can get this all settled in one area. And it was determined that it all happened in one day. He was charged with assault on a female. It was pled and found guilty for it. All the other charges were dropped.
That kind of makes it really difficult for them to have time to call you, huh?
It does.
So
extremely
you
difficult.
Know why I come to this belief? Because it was alleged numerous times that I was trafficking marijuana, that I was selling marijuana, that I was selling ecstasy inside a school zone, along with marijuana. Anyways, I've been charged for over 13 allegations that were felonies and over 8 misdemeanors that were allegations, of course. And I'll tell you this. I don't have any experience with it, but from what I understand, it's illegal for me to go to a judge, give them $10,000, and tell them to have a good day when they see me in a courtroom. But if I go to my attorney and hand him $10,000 and tell him to go pay the judge, you want to know what? Not only is it not illegal, but he has a duty by law to give me the best legal advice that he can give me. Which means he can say, well, I know this judge, and that's probably not going to work out so well, and you got a good case, so let's just roll the dice. Or he could say, do you have anything else you want to talk about today? And that's how the real world works.
It is scary.
That's so
you're
scary.
saying it's absolutely legal to do that?
It's absolutely legal.
Wow.
That's where I come to my conclusions. But I don't have any personal experience.
None.
And these are all allegations.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
With no facts to be found. Kind of like the administrative courts.
Like the administrative courts, because it's not a court of law. Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, with that, are you good?
How are we doing, Valerie? Anything else that you wish us to ask or you'd like to add?
I would love to read my victim's
Well,
impact statement to
We
you.
would love for you to read your victim's impact statement.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like the only court of law you're going to get right now is the court of public opinion.
Yes.
And if you have anything
Give me
that
one.
you wish to say to other people who have been aggrieved by the system that we're living in right now, or anyone else who's going through situations similar to what you have gone through, or maybe situations that are a little bit different, feel free to say whatever's on your heart. And if you don't feel like saying anything, we can just go to the impact statement.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Of course. Anyone who has been through any types of trauma and go to a legal system and they do not do anything for you, try any angle, any way, find any loophole to get what justice you need. Personal experience. It makes you feel better. It'll help.
And take that to the bank, because this isn't a survivor, this is a perseverer.
Yes,
right
absolutely.
here. This is somebody who is persevering in their convictions.
A very brave woman. And since you brought that up, Valerie, I myself, a therapist, counselor, and a life coach. And I'd like to know the impact of your therapist that you had seen after all of this came out. Can you tell us the experience that you had with that and how that helped you in your healing journey?
She was very kind and understanding to me. She wouldn't go into detail at the first starting of it. We would talk about little things, get off track of the conversation to divert my mind from it at the time if I got too anxious about it. She was an amazing counselor, and it helped me so much, as in being able to confront what I was going through, how I can get to the end of the line, I say.
Well, we're still not at the end of the line yet, but you got a lot of people walking with you at this point.
You sure do.
And we're just going to get more and more.
We're just going to continue to build momentum, not only for you, Valerie, but for others who have been victimized and who are on a waiting list also to see justice happen. And we pray that it comes quickly for each one of us. And this is just the beginning. And we want to put everyone else on notice that you could be next. And we're watching you very closely. And there are people around that you don't even know that are around you that are actually reporting to us. So we are very grateful to be in this position of being able to know what's going on now very closely.
And this one's going out to you, McAvoy Britton.
And I want to say to my dad, hold on, Dad. Justice is coming. Restitution is coming. I'm proud of you and I love you, Dad. My dad is a 90-year-old war veteran, and he has been an incredible trooper and example, and just been an incredible man. Very patient for the last 8 years. So I'm happy that my dad has been a wonderful example of being a good father, just a wonderful man. I love you, Dad. And Valerie, we would love to hear your victim impact statement. Thank you for sharing that with us. Our heart and our minds are with you now.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. My name is Valerie Owenby, and this is my impact statement that I had written for the case of James Franklin Sapp in the sexual assault. One of the ways I was hurt by James Sapp was that he took my virginity, which is a very precious thing to me at the age of 7. The sexual abuse started when I was only 5. He also took my sense of trust in men away, making me feel as if I could never trust an adult male. As I grew older, my thoughts about people became more judgmental, especially about men. My emotional damage was horrific. He made me feel as if I was no longer clean, and I felt as if I could never be true to myself. He forced me to lie to my family because he threatened me if I had ever told that he would kill my grandparents and my father. That caused me to be fearful for not only my own life, but also the lives of the people around me. While I was younger, I went to a Christian school, and the abuse made me feel even worse because they taught me that having intercourse before marriage was a sin. Every day I went to school was making me feel like I was never going to heaven. It also affected my friendships. Anytime I went to a friend's house, I would feel too uncomfortable around their dads, so I would act out and be asked to be sent home. That is why at my school, I was called the odd kid. I was picked on, which caused me to be stressed. Teachers, teachers, and then again act up. My school saw me as a troubled child because I would cheat and lie to my teachers, which caused friction in my house. My school could never understand why I acted how I did. That is why in the previous semester, they tried to put me in a purity class, which made me feel worse about myself because I knew I wasn't pure. In 2014, they never sent a welcome letter back. They said I was being too worldly. After not being able to go back to that school, I decided to move in with my mom because I didn't want to continue to be neighbors with a person who sexually assaulted me regularly from the ages of 5 to 12. After moving in with my mother, I told my current boyfriend at the time about what had happened to me when I was younger, and he convinced me to tell my mom. Also, after knowing that James Sapp's daughter, along with Sherry Sapp's daughter, which is the same person, was having a wedding, and we would go to their house. Now I go to therapy to get over the emotions about dramatic events in my life. As I go through therapy, I have had to take time out of my day and cancel normal teenage events to come and talk about what has happened. There is also the financial burdens of finding a ride to therapy and having to find lawyers to try to solve this ongoing problem. I am embarrassed every day if my dad or my mom wants to mention what happened. I just want to forget it ever happened. At the same time, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. That is why I am trying my hardest to fight for justice, because what happened to me shouldn't happen to any other girl.
Thank you for
sharing that, Valerie.
I don't know when my camera shut off. It shut off
A little bit ago.
probably
so-
about 20 minutes ago.
Did it?
I might come up
June.
mid-June to drop myself off with their dad for a month so that they can spend some time with them for a little bit.
Okay, and you're going to think about
So
getting an arrest warrant for James Sapp. I think it's a brilliant idea. John always
Correct.
comes up with the best ideas.
yeah, that was awesome. That's like amazing. I'm over here
That's
like
the best.
I got over a terabyte
Oh,
of logbook
goodness.
pictures on my hard drive. Yeah.
So I know you're a busy
oh
mom,
wow.
but John has a talk show program on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. and you can always listen to the rebroadcast of it. And then More Than Jibber Jabber, which is
PeerTube.
PeerTube. And that's on Sundays at 9 p.m. And the last Sunday, JJ, another John, and his sister Christine had texted me and asked me to come on the program. And we talked for about 40 minutes about your case. So that went all over. Who knows in the world where that went. And I'm affiliated with a Christian group now, and is mostly women who are now more actively involved after hearing your story. I mean, John doesn't realize how much, because the numbers are so long, how much the Just Conspiracy channel that he has on YouTube and those videos have really gone very far and wide. And I believe when John did the first video after hearing your story, when I did the research on it, I really think that jump started. That was like the match that lit to keep moving forward. And John came up with some amazing solutions to what could be done, which is going to be very different than what an attorney would tell you to
awesome.
do. So let's just get that clear. Very different. So, but I believe it was very effective. So.
All right. Well, now that we're back in view, because y'all probably lost us for a moment there. Now, I don't know how to work my own camera equipment. Anyways, Valerie, from here on out, is a true blue co-conspirator. So we'd just like to ask everybody watching this, please come conspire with us. We are Just Conspiracy, and we wish to conspire with all you good people to leave a better world for future generations than the world we all grew up in. One world, love, and peace. All right, good.
It's hard not to smile during that. I was over here like